Now, Abby Normal, come on up here. Okay, this bright, sparkly guy and his wife. I'm sorry, I love you so much.
High five? Yes.
Ouch. Okay. So he's gonna explain himself, but like he's very the quintessential. You get into the note business, you know what I mean, like the late night infomercials, and then you got right. So he knows this business inside and out. Now I really never was very good at brokering, so I just invest with other people. So. This guy can tell us the real deal on all of that, and you're very fun, very honest. If I get a lead, sometimes I just hand it to you.
Which
By the way,
I didn't call her back yet. She hasn't responded to my emails, and then I had to come here. So as soon as I'm done, we're gonna go contact
because sometimes
her.
like he's better at taking it down than
He's
I
like,
am.
Here's a lead. Reach
Hey,
out.
did you see this one yet? Come through.
Right.
Go get it.
I
See if you
think
can get it.
that's a no queen deal. I think in the end. Yeah.
No, well, she emailed me, said, "Oh, I already talked to somebody else. I thought it was you."
Oh, she did. I didn't know that. We emailed and called her, but we'll talk about that.
Yeah, so I don't know. The thing is, you network. So he came to my first event last year, knocked it out of the park. We all learned so much.
Thank you.
And then it's the relationship. So then we do stuff together, right?
Yes.
So, all right. I will turn it over to you, my friend.
Thank you. Hello. Hi. I didn't meet everyone here yesterday, and Molly had pointed out, because I was in La La Land when everyone was doing their introductions, I did not come up, so I want to introduce myself. My name is Abby Shemish, and I am the co-founder and chief executive of Amerinote Exchange. The other co-founder is Molly Corson right there, that beautiful woman in the back. And we are in the business of purchasing and wholesaling seller-financed loans. And just a little background on how we came about and how we entered into this business. I was in loan originations, as a lot of people in this industry start out, in the late 90s, early 2000s, and trucking along, making deals happen. It was a lot of stuff happening back then. I don't know, obviously, I'm sure a lot of you remember. And we used to have a lot of the in mortgage banking, mortgage brokering, the account execs would come in from different banks and ask us, hey, what kind of deals you have going today? So forth and so on. Let's go over them. Bear Stearns and Lehman and all of the, we'll call them, the two I just mentioned, reputable banks, of course. And one of our account executives from Bear Stearns came in with a young lady and said, this is your new account rep. I will be, exiting. I'm going to go over to acquisitions. And I said, well, what is acquisitions? And he had explained that it is the purchasing and acquiring of existing mortgage loans. And, it kind of went over my head a little bit. And one thing led to another. And the long and the short of it is I started doing my research and finding out that it was a tremendous, tremendous opportunity. It was exactly where I wanted to be, because it allowed us to delve into the investment part of mortgages and real estate. So that was in 2004, 2005. At that time we had started our own mortgage company, and we were kind of moving along, a small broker shop in Pennsylvania. And we decided to make the full conversion into the secondary market in late 2006. And the long and the short of it, that is that once we got the website going and the momentum going as far as the advertising, September 2008 happens, and it was just a ghost town. Now, at that time, I was so new in the industry, I didn't realize or didn't take advantage of all of the deals that were out there. So it was a learning experience for myself, regardless how much knowledge I had in the primary mortgage market. We finally started getting traction in late 2009, and we haven't stopped since. So that is the story of Amerinote Exchange and how we entered into this business. And I'll kind of jump into it. This presentation, and topics of discussion, we're going to talk about the foundations for success in the note and trading space. So that's obviously a very important one. And I want to say that this is geared for marketing your business, if you are in fact trying to get into the note wholesaling space or note trading space, or if you're just a regular investor trying to cultivate and harvest your own leads. Dawn has talked about cheap money, and that's very important, obviously. as Bo had mentioned, there's a lot of, someone could do a simple Google search and find a lot of institutional money out there. If you have the leads, and that is the lifeblood of making deals happen, that is what sets us apart in the note space, is our marketing apparatus that we use to attract and capture leads is something that allows us to stand head and shoulders above the competition. And that is what I feel we bring to the table and what makes us a special company. The other topic of discussion will be common sense tactics sticking out from the competition, exactly what we were just talking about. And then lastly, finding buying opportunities when trading notes, when you're wholesaling. I dare use the word brokering because I know there's a lot of legalities around that nowadays, so we're not necessarily going to use that because that may not necessarily be the case in some of these examples, but finding buying opportunities when trading notes. And we're going to kind of go through this. And for those of you who were here last year, it's a similar presentation with a couple of tweaks, and the tweaks are going to primarily be in the marketing space and how we market and new tactics and the future tactics that we see on the horizon for marketing your services. And this can apply to real estate, this can apply to mortgage notes, this can apply to mortgage banking in general, hard money lending. I know that's a very competitive space, of course, so there's a little of intricacies that may change. But let's move on to the foundations for success in the trading space. And this one right here, diverse advertising strategy, that is a primary ingredient to, in my opinion, from my experience, success in the note space. We also, what happens once you get the lead in front of you? Do you know what you're selling? Do you know what your end goal is? Obviously, you're looking to close the deal. You're looking to make money, obviously. But there's 20 other companies behind you that can do the exact same thing. So what makes you, different, in my opinion, in addition to capturing that lead, a whole other section of this would be making it compelling enough for them to work with you and shepherding that deal across the finish line. That is extremely important. And in my opinion, that happens with industry and product knowledge. You want to make sure that confidence is portrayed in your sales presentation and everything that you do with your clients, because if you're not confident about the person who you're working with as a seller or a client, and I'm sure everyone would agree, you're not going to work with them. I mean, who wants to work with someone who's not confident and unsure? And then, of course, persistence. Persistence, in my opinion, follow-up and problem solving are the two most important things when it comes to business. That's regardless of the business. Follow-up, and of course, problem solving or solutions that other folks may not think about. So what does that mean, advertising strategies? What are we talking about here? Let's see. Well, your lead generation is your currency with ongoing investor network relations. So what do we mean by that? If you are bringing, and Dawn, I know you've probably experienced this, but if you're bringing deal after deal to someone like Dawn or myself or whomever as a broker, specifically a newer note broker, a lot of these newer, and I say broker, let's just say a note finder. A lot of these newer note finders, what they do is they'll scour Craigslist, they'll go to FCI Exchange, they'll start plucking deals off of other people's websites, passing them off as their own, which in some cases, I'm not saying I haven't done any deals like that before, we've done a couple, but it's not a recommended marketing strategy. So if you keep sending deals that are not qualified sellers, that you don't even talk to the seller in some cases, the investor relations, the investors you start sending them to are going to stop responding to your emails. They're going to stop responding to your calls. There's a name in this industry for folks like that, and we call them, at least from a lot on the institutional side, the joker brokers. These are the joker brokers. You can spot one a mile away. A lot of note buyers in general and folks, business operators, we don't have the bandwidth to deal with this in most cases. So that is what I wanted to make sure that I get that point across. Your lead generation is your currency with ongoing investor network relations. If you're known for bringing sweetheart deals, you're going to have investors falling hand over fist trying to give you money. So, I mean, that's really the long and the short of it. We provide quality leads that are ready to go, primed for closing, primed for sale, We understand what their discount expectations are, if any at all. And not every deal is going to be like that, but you need to really roll up your sleeves, get in there, and find out what the motivation is. Let's talk about that a little bit more. So what kind of advertising strategies do we have? Of course, online, one of my favorite. I mean, and we're going to break this down. I have different slides that are going to talk about the different types of online advertising. Of course, we have offline advertising, which is obvious, and of course, we're going to break into that as well. Media advertising, that is a wide spectrum, but media, 30 years ago meant what? Television, maybe, radio. Media is a lot different nowadays. That term can be spread over many mediums and allow for that exposure to occur and capture leads. And then, of course, person to person. And I'm going to kind of go through this because last year I went over, and I'd really like to do a Q&A at the end if you guys, of course, have some questions. Strategy 1, online advertising. So what does that mean? Is anyone heard, and just by raise of hand, search engine optimization, or anyone use this? Okay, so everyone's fairly familiar. Search engine optimization is a term that is used to optimize a blog or a website, some sort of portal or platform that you're using to present your company and allow your lead demographic to land and digest the information and understand what you're trying to do and how you can help them. So search engine optimization, I always look at it like this. If you're trying to grow a garden, or if you're trying to eat, search optimization is the tactic that you have to plant the actual seeds in the ground and watch that garden grow. It's not, and I repeat, it's not going to happen overnight. So in the note trading space, if you put up a website today and you hire a company to get you to ranking Google #1 on organic searches, that is below the paid advertising search, it will take you roughly anywhere between 12 and 18 months nowadays to get to the top of that ranking and start really crushing it in that area. And that's assuming that you're maintaining your website properly and adhering to all of the tactics that are required to get you to that point. The next one, and this is just to clarify, this is our primary go-to, is the search engine optimization. Right now, Amerinote Exchange ranks for over 2,000 keywords on page 1. So anything from sell mortgage note to note buyer to trust deed buyer to business note buyer and everything in between, you will find in most cases, and I'm very proud to say this, because we worked very hard at this, Amerinote Exchange will come up in the top 3 percentile, at least on page 1. And that is how we are capturing, I would say, 95% of our leads. It took us many years to get there, and again, we're very proud of that. The second strategy we're talking about is pay-per-click advertising. Now, what does that mean? Has anyone heard of pay-per-click? Okay, so pay-per-click, very, very expensive. In anything PPC or pay-per-click, and you put the word mortgage in there, in some cases it could be $32 a click just for one person, not to a qualified lead, just for someone to land on your page. And then your content has to be compelling enough for them to take it to the next step. So Google will get them on your page, but is your website compelling enough for them to make it to the next step? That is very important. But pay-per-click advertising, if you're doing it right, in our industry, you can average about anywhere between $3.50 to $7 per click if you're doing it correctly. But in some primary mortgage, hard money, attorneys is another one off the topic. It could be $12, $13, $30, $40 in some cases. I know in Chicago, the word mortgage, if you're advertising mortgage services in the Chicago area, it's over $35. It's actually insane. Pay-per-click advertising goes across different mediums. We have Google, of course, being the #1. We have Bing, which is Microsoft. Not really, I don't use it too much. Some people do. You'll get value out of it because the cost is much cheaper, but so is the exposure. Of course, Yahoo, I mean, I didn't even know they're still around, but they may or may not do it. I know at one point they did. And then, of course, Facebook sponsored ads. I know Steve had just mentioned Facebook. This is a medium that is growing and growing in our industry, in many, many different industries, but they have a tremendous Facebook sponsored ads program. And I personally feel, not to get too involved in the tech side of it, but they poached Facebook poached the pay-per-click gal from Google. I forget her name, but they poached her, and she's been killing it ever since. Under strategy one, the third option would be videos. Now, Dawn is, every time I turn around, I see a No Queen video on YouTube. So there's many. You use this tactic quite a bit, right? So,
yeah.
I mean, educational. It's just education.
One or two a month is all.
It's enough. I got maybe one period. So I mean, I don't use this tactic at all because I don't. It's just something I should incorporate more in our advertising strategy, but I have not at this point. It's our comfort level. Not saying I wouldn't welcome it, but we just haven't explored that. But videos, YouTube, it is a tremendous opportunity to gain exposure in the note trading space. I know for sure a lot of our competitors do it. I feel that the quality and the editing is extremely important in video. So you guys click on a video on YouTube. I know if they don't get to the point in the first couple seconds, I'll just keep going on. We'll just move on. And a lot of the folks out there, I feel, don't, especially I'm talking within our industry, do not do it correctly. They don't execute correctly. So that's my only complaint about the competitors, which is fine because it gives me more business. But that being said, YouTube can be a tremendously powerful tool when trying to generate and direct leads your way. Of course, we have content marketing. Now, this is the new one. This is one that we just started exploring, and we're gaining traction on. What does that mean? Content marketing is a way to put information, whether it be a blog post, an article, a video. I mean, in some cases, if you want to sell tickets to an event, whatever the case may be, you can hire, in most cases, a company that's would be able to take that and very highly target the demographic that you're looking for and push that out through different mediums other than Google, other than a search engine, and applying that to their recipe for success, and then generating leads to actually land on your page at that blog post, where that blog post lives, on your site or wherever it is, and hopefully your job making that content compelling enough for them to take action. That's another way of really just kind of doing stuff that other people in our industry and this industry in general are not doing. That I can almost guarantee you. So content marketing, there are content marketing companies out there that you can hire, and quite frankly, there's many different channels that they can push this information through. Very highly recommended if that's something that you guys are interested in considering. And then of course, finally, social media. We're talking about Facebook, we're talking about LinkedIn, Twitter, maybe Instagram. I don't really see a lot of note buyers on Instagram snapping pictures, but who knows where that will go. Facebook is a tremendous way to highly target specific industries. And I'll give you guys an example of industries, and this is one that we hold close to the chest. It's time to let this be free. So we get a lot of calls, and I'm sure you'll agree, from attorneys who say, I have this elderly client who is trying to apply for Medicaid, and they're saying that she makes or has too much money, and she has 2 notes, and she needs to sell them. And I've been getting these leads for years, and it never dawned on me to say, well, what kind of attorney are you? I finally asked about 6 months ago, estate attorneys. You can go on Facebook and target estate attorneys with a specific outreach on that sponsored ad, and advertise that you can liquidate discounted notes. You can, if you have a discounted note you need to sell, we're the people you need to contact. Now, you need to have some form of landing page. It could be a simple landing page. If that's the case, I would recommend something called clickfunnels.com, which is a little pricey. Or of course, you could just do like a free blog and just have them land there, and then have them capture like a free submission form, name, email, phone number, reason for contact. And then there's ways to track it. And you can actually track where they're coming from, how this is being applied, where your money dollars are being worked on, what's working the best. But that is a tremendous way. That's just one example of how Facebook sponsored ads can be used that a lot of note buyers and industry professionals are not taking advantage of. Of course, we have LinkedIn. That's a good way to network with funding sources. I don't necessarily know if it would be cheap capital, but it's very possible that you can get to that point. Twitter, I don't really use too much other than pushing out our content. So if we have a blog, we want our network to see it, we'll push our post out through Twitter, and we'll just get, it's more like a branding mechanism than it is lead generation. So that's a two-parter. So you also want to have brand awareness. So, we're not talking about, a massive industry here, but brand awareness is still just as valuable in some cases as lead generation. And then, of course, I had mentioned Instagram. I threw it on there just because, who knows? You just never know. There might be someone out there with a fantastic idea on how to do that on Instagram. I'm not that guy, unfortunately. But we're going to move on to the second strategy, which is offline advertising. And then we're going to, of course, get the obvious out of the way. Everyone obviously has heard of the mailing, letters, postcards, and marketing material tactic where you purchase a list maybe of folks and you send out some sort of compelling information to them to hopefully have them capture a lead. So this can be done. And I'm just going to say letters are not the best option for, if you get a lead generation sheet, a list of note holders, and you see Mr. and Mrs. Smith, Mr. and Mrs. Jones, so forth and so on. And at the very bottom, you're going to see, Joe Schmo LLC or some sort of corporation. Corporations and organizations are the ones I would recommend sending letters to, and marketing material, a brochure, something flashy, fancy. Doesn't have to be over the top, but something that shows you that you're a reputable outlet for liquidation of mortgage notes or whatever your service is. Postcards, on the other hand, that is a very inexpensive and effective way to reach Mr. and Mrs. Smith who own the note, because they have to take the postcard, they don't have to open the letter, they can see it, they can look at it. I actually have a postcard that I got from, I think, 1-800-Flowers or one of those things, and it was a little laminated postcard, and in the corner it had an edge where you can rip off a coupon. I found that to be a fantastic way. And what would you would say, well, what would that coupon entail? Molly and I were kicking around some ideas, and we haven't tested this yet, but you guys are more than welcome to. Reaching out to travel agents and asking them that if they have any cheap airfare or cheap hotel or something that you can offer the note seller to give them as a gift using that postcard, if and only if the deal closes through your company. An iPad, any kind of gift card. I don't know if that necessarily would be compelling enough, but travel's definitely compelling enough. Or a consultation, or some contact this travel agent to redeem your tickets, or whatever the case may be. It will definitely increase the interest, and the phones will start ringing. And then, of course, it would be up to you to capture those leads. But that's a fantastic way to do that through postcards, and using that through, again, Mr. and Mrs. Smith or private note holders.
Abby?
Yes.
Let's just insert, how many people do you think send postcards to an owner carry note that was just created?
So that's a good question. Owner carry notes that are just created, I can only imagine dozens and dozens. These people are probably being buried in postcards. So we're actually that would be my next comment. There's several ways to get these names. You can obviously purchase them, which I do not recommend, but if you are going to purchase them, if you do a Google search, note seller leads, somewhere in the middle of that page, you're going to see Experian.com, which is one of the credit bureaus. They actually sell mortgage note holder leads. That is probably one of the only companies that I would use to do that. Now, do they oversell or resell leads? Probably. But they're not going to do it as much as the other companies that is their business. They have one sheet, once every 3 months, and they just sell it to anyone who will pay. That's not what you're looking for. It's actually my recommendation to cultivate and harvest your own lead. If you're working with zero budget, you go to the courthouse, you go to the recorder's office, and you ask them, I'm looking for beneficiaries on mortgages secured by real estate that were created in the past 6 to 36 months. That is a ripe note to purchase. 6 months old to 3 years old. It's good seasoning. And then what you're looking for is beneficiaries that are not banks or lenders. Anyone that is not a bank or lender. Now, you're not going to know if it's a first, you're not going to know if it's a second, you're not going to know if it's a mobile, you're not going to know if it's land. It's your job to capture that lead, which is free. It's just a time investment, obviously. And then you're going to have to go ahead and back engineer and research that property and understand who your target is. But you can compile a list that way. That is your list. It's definitely a lot of work and elbow grease, but it is going to be a hell of a lot more effective when you use this tactic.
So you said beneficiaries on mortgages tied to real estate in last 6 to 36.
6 to 36 months, beneficiaries tied to real estate that are not lenders, yes.
The newly originated lists are fairly easy to get. Could you potentially buy them and then store them for a year?
You could, but two things were going to happen there that I would bet my life on. One, someone else is going to capture that lead way before a year, if they're willing to sell. Or two, that you're going to get a return to sender because they're going to be so bombarded with mailers. Or of course, the third option, yes, you'll get the deal. I honestly would not recommend that. In this day and age, in the competitive space, as you know, because you're familiar with some of the institutions that we deal with, it's just cutthroat, man. It is cutthroat out there. There's everywhere you could throw a stone and there's a note wholesaler out there. I mean, right down the street. So I would not recommend that. But I'm not saying it's not possible. I'm just saying it may not be the best. There's better strategies. It may not be the best allocation of your time.
So just as feedback for this area, when my mom and I worked on a little rehab in Reno, and her exit strategy was owner carry, because it was for her retirement. And we got, I want to say 6 to 8 postcards, anything from something super simple, but only once. I don't think, maybe one person did a follow-up mailer, and then, so I'm just saying, there is competition out there, 6 to 8 people, and then nobody followed up from that.
Yeah.
So they went to a seminar, or they go, I'm trying this once, that doesn't really work. And then in my thinking, a lot of, they stopped chasing the leads after 2-3 years.
It's true.
They stopped chasing them, so my thought is like, gosh, life does happen to people.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, I'm still thinking maybe I'll take the older ones,
Mm-hmm.
maybe the older ones than 3 years, and just,
That's absolutely.
that's a bad idea.
I think that is, as long as you're not paying a lot of money and putting a lot of time into that strategy, I think it's great. But if you're, hard at work for many hours, or letting this stress you out, or what, it's just not. It may not be the best allocation of time, but yes, it does. I see and it also depends where in the world you're advertising to. So if you're talking about, large metro and suburban areas, you may not have. They say that it takes 5 to 8 times for someone to see a postcard before they actually respond, and that is absolutely the case. So there's a time investment there, a courtship that has to occur before you actually get that lead to contact you back. That may actually be reduced a little bit in smaller populations, smaller towns. I haven't put that comment to the test, but logic would say that may be the case. So, yes.
Okay, sorry.
Yes.
So I haven't dealt a lot with notes, obviously that's
Sure.
not here. But in real estate,
Mhm.
like oftentimes I will buy probate leads or inherited
It's good.
leads,
Yes,
right?
yes.
So is that when someone passes away, do they retitle the note?
It depends. If it's in a living trust, they don't have to go through
They
the
don't have to,
yeah,
if it's just in somebody's name.
right.
They're gonna have
Have
to
to go
do
through
that, right?
probate process
So
in most
would
cases.
that trigger to be, that wouldn't be under a new seller lead, that would be
Yeah.
through the would it?
You can hit a probate office for that if you want. I mean, so you're asking if you buy a probate lead, would that be a new seller lead? I would say no, because it's a new seller lead to me is a note that was just created, a new origination.
I just have often found that oftentimes the family members don't want to deal with it.
They don't want to
right?
deal with
So
it.
that would
You're
be
at-
prime time.
at prime
to
time.
go
That's a
in
fantastic
and
idea.
have a note you just inherited.
Fantastic idea. Just in case you guys haven't heard, probate leads. So, dad passes, he has to, a couple notes. His heirs cannot just take those notes, sell them. Well, they can, but they're not going to get clean title, and they're sure as heck not going to get funded at the closing because they don't have a court-ordered probate document from a judge signed saying that they are the recipients of this cash. So a probate process has to occur. That process can be anywhere between 3 and 14 months. I mean, so it could take a long time. So if you are strategically purchasing probate leads, it's a fantastic way. It's a great idea, actually, to do that.
But if you're doing both property and paper with equal
Yeah.
ease.
Yep.
Right.
Because most estates have some real estate, very few have notes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you wouldn't just buy a probate lead just for notes.
No.
but Property,
Exactly.
paper,
Yep.
paper, property turns into paper.
Yep. And this can apply to both. I just want to be clear. This can apply to not just mortgage note buying or property buying. It can also apply to originations. You know, if you're a loan originator or so forth and so on. Anything. Multiple. Yes, sir.
Obviously, you're doing postcards.
Yes.
Are you measuring what kind of response rate you're getting?
I personally, when we did postcards, I relied on the team that we hired to do that. But yes, to answer your question, absolutely. That is where we'll call it the bookkeeping portion of that becomes extremely, in my opinion, arduous. I'm a big ideas kind of guy. I'm not the guy that likes to sit behind a PowerPoint or a spreadsheet. As a matter of fact, I'm very terrible at using Microsoft Excel, and that's funny because I'm in the note business, and that's how we get deal. I mean, I don't know how to use it, and I'll be the first to admit it. So,
What kind of response rate were you getting?
with in postcards, I mean, this was 2009, 2010. We were for every, for every 1,000 that we were getting, our response rate 4 or 5%. It was good, but that was dialed in. Now that was people calling. Out of those 4 or 5%, we would land and close maybe 1/4 or 0.5% of those. But that one deal can be a $3,000 commission, which can set you up for another couple months.
So ours is less than 1%
Yeah,
as of right now.
right. Now we were cultivating and harvesting our own leads. We weren't purchasing them. That was the difference. As a matter of fact, there was usage of students as interns. You give them a very specific compartmentalized job. We need you to do this, this, and this, and they got credit for working with our company. I mean, that's a great way, a very inexpensive way of doing it. But you have to have the
Real estate, not mortgages, so it's, I mean, we're doing like. the
big difference.
sellers.
Absolute big difference. The note business is extremely small in comparison to the mega size of real estate. So that may be very good. But for the note business, we were getting, if I recall, at the height, 4.5%. So I shouldn't say 5, but 4.5. Moving on, lunch and learns. Has anyone heard the term lunch and learns? Show of hands. Okay, so this setup, I mean, this obviously is more of a conference seminar, but a lunch and learn can be an investment of $500 or $800 or whatever, putting like a Subway package together, or going to Applebee's or whatever you want to do, and inviting professionals or note holders that you captured through postcards. It doesn't have to be, hey, I want to buy your notes. Hey, I know you own a note. Come on down to Applebee's. I'm going to buy you lunch. Bring your husband. Let's talk about what you can do. And if you don't like it, you get a free lunch. Get these people in a room, whoever they may be, and discuss how you can help them, how you can liquidate their cash or liquidate their note for cash, how you could talk to them about generating cheap money, just like using Walter's tactic for the IRAs. I mean, something along those lines. Of course, I'm oversimplifying here, but a lunch and learn is a fantastic way to get in front of people and locally and get them to understand how you can help them and make that attractive to them and show what kind of value you can bring to the table. So that's a tremendous way to generate leads. It's usually anywhere between a couple $100 investment to, I mean, if you really want to go fancy, upwards of 1,000, if that's really what you want to do. But I wouldn't recommend, obviously, you don't have to put on, for professionals, mortgage or real estate professionals, investors maybe, but note holders, you don't want to come off too fancy in some places. That would actually scare them away. So, or property owners or whatever the case may be. So that's another one on offline advertising. And of course, again, using that list that we talked about, whether you're purchasing it, cold calling. Not for everyone, for sure. There's nothing, it's tough. It's a tough gig there, but it is effective if you have the correct intelligence. And what I mean by that is you can, again, purchase lists, which we talked about, in-house research, which is, again, what we talked about on the list portion. But how? How do you find? So you go to a courthouse, you get the beneficiary, you get a parcel number, which you then find out what the address is. Maybe you do a search like Zaba search. I don't know if you guys ever heard of it. It used to be very accurate to get numbers. It's completely free. I haven't been on it in years, but not so accurate anymore. But it was, you put Mr. M, Johnson in there, and from, Iowa, and you would get out his couple numbers and usually reach the one that would call. You usually reach the right number. How do you figure it out? How do you know who these people are? Well, I don't know if anyone's heard of LexisNexis. That's the one we use. LexisNexis is a database, a system that is not cheap, but it would allow you to obtain information through aggregated channels for phone numbers, to mortgage documents, to criminal background checks, in some cases credit reports. So you can do a lot. They roughly charge about $250 a month, and there is a process they put you through an underwriting process to make sure that they're going to give you access to this information. They want to make sure you're not using it for nefarious purposes. So LexisNexis is a fantastic way to get phone numbers.
How does that service compare to TLO, which was I have TLO?
TLO.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm going to be very frank. I don't know what TLO is.
Oh, TransUnion. What is it?
Oh yeah. So right. I've never used it. I know the guys at Security Financial use it. The SecFin guys, and they've been using it for years. They love it. They also have LexNext too. So
They have both.
They have both.
I'm just wondering how they compare, because LexisNexis is 3 times as expensive.
it is.
When we sell our mortgages off,
Yeah.
there's to the institutional buyers.
Yes.
They all want LexisNexis.
Yes, and that's where we got the, we actually got it from First National, and they kind of turned us on to that. But LexisNexis, is, of course, is a very good one. You can do the good old-fashioned put their name in a Google search and see what comes up. You can also track them on Facebook. I mean, there's different ways you can play detective here. And then, of course, speaking of detective, let's get the obvious out of the way. You can hire a private detective. I've done it many times. They'll get you socials. They'll get you, anything, phone numbers, the percentage, the probability of how this is a 98% match to this guy's. This is his phone number, so forth and so on. It can cost anywhere between $50 and $150 per person. Expensive, but if you have a targeted list, 10, 15 people that you're highly targeting, that you're really trying to work over, that would be a fantastic way to do that, and very accurate. Again, a money investment and a little bit of time. But that's another one, of course, is the cold calling. A tactic that we don't use anymore because we typically capture our leads. And we now allow the note sellers to come to us. And that's the way I like it. I'm not necessarily, it's just an easier sale. But we can kind of get into that in a minute. Next.
A lot of the people who spend the postcards, then they go,
Right.
then they go online, and then they...
And then I steal them. So, that's the other thing with the postcards, is they go, okay, well, Joe Schmo's going to buy my thing. Let's see who else is going to buy it. And then, again, remember, top 3 percentile of over 2,000 searches, they're going to land in our lap. And hopefully, our presentation and invitation to come work with us is compelling enough for them to do so. And hopefully, we'll capture and close that lead, or convert that lead to a sale. Strategy number 3 is media advertising. So what does that mean? This is a tactic that requires the use of strategic press releases. So we hired a company who was a digital marketing company, and they were what would you say, Mal? The jack of all trades, the master of none, right? But they did one thing extremely well. They were a marketing company, not an SEO company, not a pay-per-click company. They did everything. And the guy said to me, he actually found us because he sold us a note, the CEO. When I did research on him, I saw he was like the go-to guy on CNBC talking about the Facebook IPO and all this. So I was like, this is a guy I want to work with. And we worked for many years together, but it turned out they were extremely good at media pitches, or media blitzes is what they would call them. And they would write strategic press releases based on current events. So the Fed is raising a rate hike. Write a press release about it. Abby Shemish is a mortgage professional, and he can discuss the impacts of a increase and so forth and so on. And then they put that press release out through different channels, which you could do as well by paying $30, $40, $50 through different websites. And forgive me, the websites are escaping my name. The names of the websites are escaping me right now. But if you do a Google search, press release sites, you can easily push them out through there. But Some of these press releases got picked up, and I'm sorry guys, I wish I had screenshots, but you're gonna just have to take my word for it. Realtor.com reached out to them. They wanted to interview me for why someone would use a 40-year amortization mortgage. And we were, interviewed. Portion of the article was an interview, and we were mentioned, and our company was mentioned. Now, they didn't provide a backlink because Realtor.com doesn't do that, but that's significant. That's brand awareness. So you can always use that now and say, okay, Mr. Note Seller, well, if you just put my name into a Google search, you're going to see tons of things that pop up. And that is, in my presentation, when I send an offer, I put Google reviews, Better Business Bureau, and other links that show how active we are in the space. So, number one, press releases, or the strategic use of press releases. So, you're looking to be an industry authority or create thought leadership, right? So that's really the goal of this, is that you are the authority. Now, of course, if you are not the authority, you shouldn't act like you are. I'm not saying that I am, but you need to know a little bit about what you're discussing. You need to have the confidence to know what you're discussing if you're going to go onto investment podcasts or real estate podcasts or radio shows. I threw in local TV and cable networks, and I'll kind of get into that. But all of them, with the exception of local TV and cable, we have done. Investment podcasts, real estate podcasts, and tremendous way to get out there into the space. This would be more for not necessarily the generation of note sellers or people that you can actually buy, in my space, buy notes from. This would be more for the generation of cheap money. This is a great way to do that, or at least an ingredient to set yourself up for the acquiring or securing of cheap capital. And the reason that you do that is investment podcasts, usually investors looking to invest their money somehow. That's one way. Real estate podcasts, same thing. Radio shows. Now, a lot of the radio shows were like AM talk, but these are where a lot of the rubber meets the road as far as some of these AM talk shows, real estate investment. I've heard some really good advice over the years on some of these shows, and we actually were lucky enough to be interviewed on some of them. I put local TV and cable networks because I know there are some areas that have local shows, and I can think of a couple that are not in the real estate note business or the mortgage business in the San Francisco Bay Area, but there's local shows pertaining to the folks in that area, local needs. And if you can find a show that is willing, through a press release, to invite you on and speak about property flipping or getting into property flipping or getting into using IRAs. In some cases, it could be a local morning show where they bring you on for a segment to speak. This is all very possible. The press release has to be compelling enough, of course, and they're not going to do it unless there is research done on you, and that research would usually lead to a website, some sort of Facebook page. They want to make sure you're a reputable person, so you want to make sure you have all of this lined up through that process. Great way to do it. Extremely inexpensive because you're going to need the website in most cases anyway, or a blog or some sort of something to show you online. I mean, you're crazy if you don't, in my opinion. So that is already calculated into your costs of doing business. Sending a press release out takes a minute. I mean, it can literally take a minute, and every day there's something to write about, especially in the real estate and mortgage industry. You can write about anything that is based on a current event, so it's extremely effective. The next strategy, which is the fourth, person-to-person advertising. This is, and I put this here specifically, person-to-person is an expanded form of offline advertising. This is one I wanted to give it, let it stand on its own. It's kind of what I'm doing up here right now. Conferences, guest speakerships, investment clubs, workshops, just like you were talking about. These are great ways, and this may or may not come from someone inviting you to do so. This is more like, hey, we know each other, we work together, we built a relationship that way. But if you can get to that point in any way or any manner that you see fit that gets you there, it's extremely, extremely effective if you are confident. Again, it all comes back to that confidence thing. So that's, in a nutshell, the strategies for an investment for advertising and keeping that investment strategy or that advertising strategy diverse. So I don't know, is there any questions with regards to the advertising before we move on? Okay.
I would add
Please.
One-on-ones. So
One-on-ones.
target your estate planning attorney.
Right.
To set up appointments to go discuss and, yeah, so one-on-one.
Thank you.
Hey Sherry,
Yeah.
since you guys have, talk about your media, I mean, do you guys do?
Right, you do a radio show.
I mean, talk about what you guys.
There you go.
I'm sorry, say,
Well, cause you, part of your Sage International is
yeah, say advertising and marketing.
advertising. So
Right.
how do you fit into what?
All of it.
There,
So
folks.
like press releases
We
and
do,
interviews
yes.
and, because you guys have you've had me on your radio show a couple of times, but you guys have the setup, like I could pay you guys to record a high quality little spot
Yeah, I have
for a
full
local
video,
local
audio.
cable.
Yeah, we
Wow.
create commercials, radio, television.
Right, so you've got it all the setup. And you're
Yes.
just right there in Reno. So
Yes.
we're gonna talk again. I'm sneaking
Yeah.
up on you. Sneaking up on
And you know, he's right on, and I love to, marketing's my favorite subject.
Yes.
I'm not gonna talk about it today, so I'm glad you are.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, it really is critical, and some of what you're talking about, like a postcard, and then you follow up with maybe, like I asked Molly, were you guys mailing to estate planning attorneys, and then you follow up with a phone call,
Yep.
can I come in and educate
That's right.
you about what we're doing?
That's right. And that follow-up, it needs to be in a very specific time frame. You don't wait 2 weeks. You want to strike while the iron's hot, as they say. But thank you. That's a great idea. Yes, sir.
I have two, like on YouTube, because I've had tons of success on YouTube.
Yes.
Whatever your niche is, write down the 30 most search terms for that niche.
Yes.
Like someone note fast, da 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 da. I do this for a lot of different, and then you create a video,
Yep.
2-minute video.
2
for
minute.
each of it,
That's right.
And you keep, the title is that one of the 30, and then the description is all optimized with keywords.
Right.
And you get ranked because Google owns YouTube. You get ranked on front page of Google without
That's right.
having to pay a dime.
That's right.
And then the other point I had to make is the other easy, cheap, effective way that I do is I hire a virtual assistant for like $7 an hour, and I have them build me lists. So like, for example, like one thing, like I joined in on Fortune Builders because I joined on somebody's membership. I didn't pay the 25 grand. It's a good thing to do because it's got a lot of network, and I use it for my hard money business. But they have a directory, so what I did is I scrubbed the whole list of everybody, all the members, and now I'm sending them an email. Hey, I'm a Fortune member, Fortune Builder Mastery student.
Right.
If you need a hard money loan, right?
Right.
And I build relationships. I'm getting
Fantastic.
responses
That's
every
where I'd heard from you.
day. You've probably seen me on their infomercial. I wasn't paid for that, though.
That's awesome. These are great ideas, and that's many different ways that can be expanded here. I will say that if you are, and this is just from my personal preference, Bo is right on with a YouTube video, no more than 2 minutes, 30 seconds to 2 minutes. Yes.
And when you do your videos, you should also make sure you have like the words of what you're saying across the screen, because sometimes the videos come on the page and they load, but
Yes.
the audio doesn't come on.
Exactly.
So people don't know what you're saying, so they can, if it's,
And
friend looking
guess where you can learn all this, guys?
Rev.com will do that.
YouTube. You go to YouTube and just how to make a YouTube video. You will find YouTube is the best teacher. I'm sorry, Rudy, I didn't mean to interrupt. Please repeat what you said.
Just on Molly's point, there's a company called, or a site called Rev.com, which will transcribe for like a minute or so.
Wow. Yeah.
Just use them.
Yeah.
Just use them.
So
Put it right on your video.
Yeah, it's like, like in LinkedIn, you're flicking through and like the audio doesn't kick in right away.
Yeah.
People can read what the person is saying
Yeah.
without having to
Oh,
hear
I
it.
see.
Rev.com,
Yeah,
their
it's-
business.
Rev,
So
R-E-V.
what you do is you go onto Rav.com and you send them your 3-minute video. They'll transcribe it and put it in. So then you can use that as in your you can use that in YouTube as your description, and also
Nice.
they have a part for hearing impaired, and it actually ranks you higher.
That's right. Nice.
Video
YouTube.
back, REV.
REV.
Yes. I learned, and this is it, personal and for business, YouTube is the best teacher ever.
One more, since you're giving us great information
Yes.
on your way
Uh-huh.
and the group. One thing I kind of discovered recently is a really good way to find self-directed IRA owners. Go to the county website
Yes.
and search for the phrase FBO.
Right. Of course.
Wait, what?
Genius. You a genius, Kanye.
Typically, people that title property in their IRA, that title it such and such customization FBO.
FBO.
If you
for benefit of.
FBO, you'll get a freaking huge list.
And now you have,
of
right,
all the
self-direct,
counties.
right, that's a genius.
You're here first.
Rudy, nice. So we're going to move on, God bless you, we're going to move on to industry knowledge. And this, I put it up here, this is a broad term and consists of two primary parts. You guys, I'm sure you may have some additions to this. The sales presentation. That sales presentation is I'm talking about the entire experience from the time they call in, the actual transmission of the information that they give you to create. I'm talking about in my industry, the transmission of the information that they give you for the note itself, the property address. How easy is it for them to give that information? Are you making it hard? Are you making it easy? Are you redirecting them to a website? I mean, what are you doing? How is that? You want to make it as easy as possible. As easy as possible. So that's what I'm talking about. And of course, the delivery of the offer, and then of course, the processing. But the processing, it doesn't always go smoothly whether you try to help or not. I'm sure you guys understand, especially with institutions, sometimes it's like slow Chinese torture chamber for some of these sellers. But it happens. I mean, they have to make sure they're getting a note that they want. Of course, the second one is what I was referring to, the buying process, and that's really holding their hand, being the shoulder to cry on if need be, to make sure that you, as I mentioned before, shepherd this deal along and get it across the finish line. So what does that mean? We're going to expand on that. Persistence is one. Well, you know what? Let me just back up here. Okay. No. Uh-oh. And scene. Hi, I think yeah, we have a little bit of an issue here. But while Axel's fixing this, I will get into what I was saying. How are you handling this information? You want to make it as easy as possible, regardless how you're getting these leads, especially if you're in a highly aggressive and yeah. Yeah. Oh, thank you.
Don, how are we on time? We're fine. Actually, Sabrina just texted me and apologized she can't come up, so
Oh.
we're gonna have lots of.
Okay, well, it's a happy show. All
We're
right.
gonna have lots of non-performing notes.
And loan servicing, right?
Yeah. Loan servicing and institutional NPNs.
Right. So the sales presentation, of course, is you want to make sure it's as easy as possible for these folks to work with you. You want to be inviting, you want to be open, you want to be, of course, professional, and just go through the process. And that comes with experience, for sure. But, if you guys ever worked in retail or just with people in general, everyone knows what that means, and you would want to make that fit your personality. You don't want to force something that isn't you. You want to make it your own. I can't stress that enough. There's nothing worse. I know this really doesn't doesn't apply to a lot of us because apparently Rudy's the only 9-to-5er here. But when you are in a 9-to-5 job, for a small company known as Amazon, but if you are at the 9-to-5, I remember my first day in the mortgage business in the end of 1998 or beginning of 99. He sat me down and he said, "This is the script. Do not deviate from the script." And the script didn't work. It never worked. It wasn't me. It just didn't work. Maybe it worked for him. So you want to make sure you make it your own. And from that day on, I vowed never to read off of a script again. And of course, the note buying process we talked about, which is the execution of the process, which if you're wholesaling, you're not necessarily going to have full control over this. If you're not spending the money, you're not going to have control. What does that entail? It usually entails a drive-by appraisal in some cases. It definitely entails a title search date down, make sure that the title's clean. It definitely consists of acquiring a lender's policy. And then you want to definitely check payment history. You want to do background checks. There's an underwriting process that has to occur, and that underwriting process isn't always the smoothest. And it's definitely not the smoothest if you're going to institutional banks where they have to have loan committee meetings and funding, discussions and, all kinds of credit reports and, approvals and, anything you think of that would put you and the seller through the ringer. So it does happen. But you have to be the professional and remain the professional in that. And I don't know if you guys were, yesterday I was in and out all day, in and out, because we had a closing, and this guy, you know, he was in a very sad situation in his life, and we got him his money, but between the funding source, which was a complete nightmare, and the attorney, which was no walk in the park either, this poor guy, you know, basically, and I told Molly this last night, he got his money yesterday. They gave him a check. You know, there's so many things I had to be the shoulder to cry on. They gave him a check, and he literally, once we got out, he couldn't cash the check. They had to hold the check. The guy was living in his car, waiting for this deal to close because he was homeless. Like that it's so sad. The deal closed. He's like, Abby, thank you so much. They gave me $12,000. I'm walking out with $12,000 cash, and they put the other $70,000 in my bank account. He started crying. You know, that I've never had that happen. Obviously, he was like a release for him, and you know, but you want to make sure I'd rather have him crying in happiness than crying in sadness, is what I'm saying. And I feel like we did our job, even though we put this poor guy through the ringer, and it wasn't on purpose. It was just because he didn't have the original note. He doesn't remember what title company he had to use. We had to do a whole search to see who he used, and it turned out to be this attorney that was as useless as lips on a chicken. So, I mean, it was like, it was a nightmare. It was a nightmare. So we're gonna move on off of farm animals. And we're going to move to persistence. So what does that mean? The art of professional persistence. Follow up even after you get a no, and know when to accept no as an answer. So I mentioned it earlier, and I'm telling you from experience that when we get a lead, and Amali can attest to this, I'm still working leads that just called in. I'm kicking some tires. I want to know about this. I want to know about that. In 2015. And I'm still following up with them today. You know, we didn't get anywhere. We've closed many deals like that. Follow-up is the most important ingredient after all of the setup of your marketing apparatus. If you're not following up, you're not closing deals, period. And it's about polite persistence, knowing how to gauge the situation and not appearing desperate. My tactic and what I use, which works quite a bit, is, you know, Mr. Note Seller, just reaching out to you again. You know, we set some money aside for you in our reserve account. We're doing our allocation calendar for this year, our funding schedule for this month. We want to know if you want us to keep you on it. What are we doing here? Do you want us to hold the money? Do you want us not to hold the money? Do you want us to follow up? We give him many options. We're showing him we're not shoving them into a situation that they're not interested in being put into. And that gives them the wherewithal to make the decision on if they, the honesty level really starts bleeding through, and we get more honest responses that way. And that way we can set our follow-ups in a fashion that would allow us to maximize that capturing of that lead down the road. So follow-up is extremely important. I highly recommend some sort of maybe a customer management relation software, or I just use Google Calendar. That's just my favorite. In the description, I put all of the conversations I had, I date them, and I can go in and just search through property address, seller's name, phone number, email address, through Google Calendar. It's free, it's amazing, I love it. So, and of course, if you're a bigger organization, it's not gonna work for you because you have multiple folks. Yes?
I was just gonna offer a resource that's free.
Please. Oh, you never heard of it?
It's like basically make a database for anything.
Really?
And one of the things I use it for is follow-up, where, just the person's name, the last time I followed up, the next time I'm going to follow up, and notes.
Right.
And then you can just pull up like a calendar view and see who am I supposed to follow up with today, and it links to their record, and it's pretty cool.
Nice.
It's free.
It sounds awesome.
It's a mobile app and a desktop app, and it's all synchronized. You can
I love that.
You can pull it up on your phone.
Love that.
It's all cloud hosted.
Right.
It's really good.
And it's free, you said? Do they have a paid version?
They do, but for something like that, you wouldn't.
Yeah.
It gives you a few extra features.
Right.
Color coding.
Right.
Is it AIR,
Table.
2 words?
Like air table.
Okay.
Yeah. I was stupid enough to pay $300, what was it, Mal? $300 a year for Salesforce? It was just, It has its value, but not in a small shop or anyone, a couple people. I didn't find any value in it, but maybe some of you folks may. And then, of course, know when to accept the no. Usually it occurs when they hang up on you in mid-conversation. That's a pretty good indication that they don't want anything to do with you. It has happened, and it wasn't the first and probably won't be the last. But there are folks, there's also the folks that say, well, we sold it. Okay, no problem. See you later. And then, of course, I always go to the public record to see if there was an assignment of a deed or assignment of mortgage. And, 9 times out of 10 there is. But what are you going to do? Call the guy back or call the girl back and be like, liar! Although you want to. You're a liar. And start, I'm just saying, know when to accept the no. And sometimes they say no, but they don't know that they mean no. They say it, but they're still going to need that service down the road. And even after some of these folks say no, I'll put a scheduled call in for a year and a half later. What's that?
That's what I was going to ask.
Yeah. Oh, I do it all the time. Like I said, I got people from 2015 who didn't even give me information. All I have is their name, phone number, email address, and then the conversation record. I don't even know what they're selling. I don't even know what state they're operating in. But I'll still reach out to them and say, hey, what's happening? And that works. That definitely works. Follow-up is an extremely important ingredient to success.
Are you doing the bulk of your inside, so effectively sort of inside sales? Do you do all this yourself?
Oh, I do. I'm a solopreneur. And I'll tell you, we are at a point now, and I'll kind of give you the short version. Molly's one of the co-founders, and if it wasn't for her and her W-2 job in 2008, 2009, 2007, Amerinote wouldn't exist. She is the only reason why we were able to grow the way we did. So Molly's in the tech industry in San Francisco. That's what she's been doing for the past 5 years. And I said, Molly, it's time. It's time to come on home. You know what I mean? Bring her in for landing. And we agreed that was going to happen in July of this year. And we were so happy. And she gave her notice. And she gets a call about 3 hours later. And they gave her a huge raise. They fired the manager and made her manager. How the heck do you say no to that? So I was extremely upset. One would think with the increase in money and this great position, which was fantastic. She's like, do you believe this? I'm like, no. I was like, she's laughing, I'm crying, because now I have to go out and hire someone I don't know. I don't primarily trust, because when it comes to work, I don't trust because I've had workers that just led me to that conclusion. And it was probably because of my inexperience in managing a team, which I've gotten a lot better at now. But I am a solopreneur, and it's just because I haven't found the right fit, and I just need one good fit. And if I'm going to hire someone for between $50,000 and $80,000 a year, depending on where they live in the country, I want to make sure that person knows more than me. And I also want to make sure that they're going to increase my sales by triple that or thereabout. You know what I mean? So we haven't gotten to that point, but we're kind of working on that now. But yes, everything is in-house, everything's through sales. And then the wholesaling part, we do offload the processing work to some off-site processors. And of course, when we're wholesaling, a lot of the underwriting is done by the investor. So we're just kind of waiting in the wings and just waiting to see where they land. Yes?
So are most of your buyers institutional? Then what's your percentage institutional versus pop?
Well, I would say, that's a good question, because most of my mom and pop is Dawn. I mean, really, that's my primary access to mom and pop.
Which one am I? I get confused sometimes.
Well, no, the mom and pop money, your cheap capital is what I'm saying. Yeah. So I would say about
I'm mom.
65% institutional, 35% private.
35%. She's one of your top.
Yes,
money
correct.
Persons.
Yes.
And so you're bringing your cheap money.
Right.
It's not yours. It's OPM, and then you're making a spread on the deal.
Usually.
And you're making a spread on the deal.
Correct. And this usually occurs with deals that have gone through several deals that are just, when it comes to credit score sensitivity, which all institutional buyers are, in the seller finance note space, with the exception of, I'm talking about performing notes. Credit scores out the window, especially under 525, start scaring away all the institutions. That's when you can really, that's where you start problem solving. And Dawn is one of my main outlets for allowing me, one of the main, I hate to use the term tools in the toolbox, that allows me to problem solve in a way that, captures that and converts that to a sale. But yeah, so we'll do that on the hairier deals, right? And then the deals that other investors, like I personally think the Texas one with 12 different pieces of collateral, I think that was a good note. I just, other people didn't want it, and I thought it was a great deal for us. I could be mistaken, but
Cross-collateralized
12 properties, one note. And here's the beauty of it.
Personally, I really liked it.
What's that?
That note.
That was you. There you go. High five. So
It was 30 minutes from my house.
there you go.
See all the properties.
12. It was so 12. She was the buyer.
Oh, you bought
She bought it. So there, I didn't know that. We just all learned something new. So there's the buyer right there. But it was a cross-collateralized note,
That
and
one she wasn't cheap on. You got a good return on that one.
right
What kind of
Yeah.
spreads are available? Like, I mean, what kind of spreads are available?
on those particular ones.
Yeah, like, I mean, like,
Well, do you remember the commission we had to pay out to?
Yeah,
Yeah.
this was a unusual one
Yeah.
in many regards.
Yeah.
And the thing is that a daisy chain actually worked.
Yeah. Well, the daisy.
Usually they do
The reason the daisy chain worked in this case is because I've been working with the broker who brought it to me since the very beginning, since 2008. He's one of the first people I started talking to. And we were both at the same place at the same time. And we've closed deals in the past. It's been many years since we have, I would say 3 years. He brought me this deal. He says, this person's been through the ringer with FNAC and all the others. And he went through 2 underwriting processes. Not only that, if you recall, we got him to pay for all the appraisals, and he paid for the closing, and the title, and the lenders.
And there's still enough meat on the bone for both of you guys to make spread?
No, three.
The 3 of us.
I want to say in this case, and this is not
And I'm making
normal.
a really great return.
And she's making it. So,
can you just put it on the board so we can see like an example?
I just want to say it's unusual.
it was
so don't expect
unusual.
But she got almost a 14% yield,
Yeah, I'll let you. Yeah.
and there was 50,000 to split 3 ways.
Yep.
Wow.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was a.
Pencil on a deal though. Just I'm curious to see how it all works. Like, I think if
Like,
you
do
wrote
you,
an
do you guys
example.
really, do you guys all want that?
Please, Dawn. I beg you to do because I cannot remember for the life of me.
Potatoes.
Oh.
I'm not here just for the garlic bread.
No. Please.
Like down at dawn when you said that I could make coffee.
Yeah, that's you. That's you. Well, Levelland, Texas. Thank you.
Okay, here's another thing for networking. We had just spent time at a women's mastermind at your house.
Yes. Oh, okay.
So then I go, and then you bring me this deal. Go, she lives right there.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's where I go.
Right.
And you want to hear something even funnier? After we got all the information, we started going through it. My husband knows the original.
Note owner. He was a great guy. Oh my God. This guy was so fantastic. Such a gentleman. I mean, this guy was top notch.
Turns out.
Yeah.
Like I didn't know that before. That was the first deal we've done,
Yeah.
right? Now I've spoiled her because now she won't do anything less than 14%.
Right, and that was just to let you know, that was a performing note, by the way. The only deficiency there was borrower credit. And I say borrower credit, not that they have great pay history, but for a bank, it didn't work. And their loss, and this guy the pay history was good, the collateral
Okay, so
was.
let's set a deal. What?
He's renting all those properties out.
That's correct.
For way much more money.
Yep.
Of that, so.
Yep.
Was it Barry?
little bit.
There was no bare land. It was 1 commercial or 2 commercial, the rest
Okay.
residential.
Yeah, I just turned it all the way up.
So real deal, right? So here first, like when you're going to buy a note, what do we look at first? What do we look at first?
Signature on it.
Say it again. The collateral. Why do we want to know what is the note secured by? Or the collateral for the loan, or what it's secured by? What's the deed of trust attached to? What's the mortgage attached to? Why do we have to look at that first?
Because we might end up owning it.
Yes.
That's right. You got to love the property.
Okay, you want to know that if you end up owning it, you want to own it for what you bought the note for, or you made the loan for, or that you can at least sell it at a fire sale and get your money out. Yes?
And you guys, online, you had a BPO on all the properties.
Yeah,
that the note seller paid for. Again, I'm just going to say that, which is so unusual.
And there was a lot of other things, because you had it sold already, and then it fell through, the other guy
broker had it sold. He came back, he's like,
and his funding source
please
fell
make
through.
me, be my knight in shining armor, make me look good in front of this guy. I've been dragging him through the mud for the past 4 months with these other institutions. And that's
Right.
what you all did.
All right, so the collateral then, remember the little bondage house? In this case, it was 11 properties. And one note. So a blanket mortgage. One note secured by 11 properties, and I think you said one commercial and the rest single families,
I
or
think it was
duplexes,
one or two commercial, the rest were single families, and there's no duplexes if I recall correctly. There was
Okay,
single
so
families.
right, okay.
Single
and-
families and a couple commercial.
Okay, and I actually thought I was gonna make, we were even gonna, so the first thing we have to do is keep Ashley safe. So, because if I'm starting a new relationship with an investor, do I want her to lose money on the first deal I ever do with her?
Probably.
Or do I want her to be super happy, right?
It's quite all right.
Okay, so number one, she's in the neighborhood. So I love this, right? If you can get investors and deals to be all in the same neighborhood, it's just feel good. You know how I like that little, remember that circle? Remember that circle I did over there? So it's like, I love it, That's what I love. So, so in that case, what happened, I can't remember, is that they came in, I thought they were gonna appraise for 525
That's right.
altogether.
It didn't appraise for 525.
It did not.
Under 475, I think, or something.
Under
like
475, and then you have, when you get the BPO, you've got the, what is it, the market value, the suggested list, and
the
the
quick sale.
30-day. Which value did
You
I
went
go?
off quick sale.
I went off a quick sale value.
Oh, it was 515 retail. That's what it was.
Retail.
And it was 475 or 470
Yeah.
quick sale. That's what it was.
Can I ask a question real quick?
Yes.
For the BPOs,
Yeah, who do you use for that?
do you use like a management company that all the
Yes.
buyers, like Clear Capital?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll
You like
use
Clear-
Keystone. We'll use who's the other one that we met? I forget his name. Anyway, yeah.
Okay, it's very similar to what
Yes.
I'm doing.
Okay, very important, because you base a lot, when you're not doing it local in your backyard, you have to rely a lot. And you better have, the biggest way to lose money is not to have an accurate appraisal or BPO on something. And I've learned that. Who's learned that by firsthand experience, and it's hit
That's
your
one I
pocketbook?
use.
Me? Gosh, that hurts.
What's this?
I hate that. You get an appraisal, you take the property back, and suddenly it's worth half of what you,
Yeah.
God, Jesus. I love Jesus. Did I tell you how Jesus
pushed you off the cliff.
Jesus pushed me off the cliff? Yeah.
So
What'd you
I
say?
had a bunch of condos up here were sold based on forged appraisals.
Forged appraisals.
Oh,
Nice.
yeah. So I have the submission for me. I don't know if you want to look at it or.
Well, just you tell me the numbers,
so
because
we
I
have.
can't see that.
Yep, we have a sales price of 500,000.
So this is how this was the security. So now here's the note. Is there
Right.
still a lot of feedback on this?
I don't hear it.
No? Okay.
We like the heavy breathing.
Okay.
That's value added.
So that was 500,000.
Okay, so the sales price is, you said 500,000?
Correct.
Okay.
With a 50,000, and that was April of 15 was the sale date.
50,000 down payment.
50,000 original.
Okay, now let's just talk about that. Is that a ginormous down payment for a non-owner occupied?
No.
That's pretty
Small.
slim.
Yeah, that should be bare minimum. 10%.
Oh, this is very slim.
Yeah, 10% is bare minimum.
Okay, so then we have a first note for
450.
450.
Amortized over 240
What's the interest rate?
The interest rate is 8.52, very specific, but that's the interest rate they landed on. And I can tell you why. It's because they had to back into the monthly payment. He wanted a specific monthly payment, not a specific interest rate. So he wanted a $4,000 a month monthly payment, which led to the 8.52.
What city, what state were these properties?
Levelland,
Texas.
Texas.
All Texas and
All
all
Te-
single-family homes?
With the,
They're
all with the
all
exception
like
of one.
within what, a few blocks of each other?
Yeah. With the exception of one was a commercial retail.
What's the term?
The term is 240. So we have
240?
20-year payback period at 8.52%.
And so that made the monthly payment
4,000.
approximately. And then they broke it up because he's collecting rents at different times, so
Right,
it was,
so by
2,000 twice a month.
Right. One on the 15th, one on the 30th, or one on the
That
first
was also
week.
very unusual.
Right.
So I only put 10% down on this.
You only
Yeah.
put 10% down.
And then how many remaining?
Now, it was when we got this in our in-house, there was 41 payments made at that point. So 41, and this is as of March of 18, March of this year, there was 41 payments made. So the remaining payments on that were 199.
So remaining payments, I wish we
199.
could bring up like the calculator, because I would love to show people this,
Yeah.
but we can't do that right this second. So,
Wait, will that
You can on a
thing
laptop
plug
if you
into my
want.
phone? Because I've got my TV 10B2. Would it plug into my phone?
that's not, is that my computer?
Whatever-
No, that's your
whatever
computer.
Oh, this is
thing
my computer?
Yeah.
And this isn't going to be perfect because it's going to be 4,000 a month instead of 2,000. We're just going to just this will be enough to get the idea, I think. Now solve for I interest. So it's close enough, but the problem is it's not really 4,000 one time. It's 2,026 per year.
Change the number of payments.
Yeah, we could do, but I just don't, I'm not going to do it for now, right? So I just getting you used to now. Does everyone have this, a financial calculator of some sort that they? If you do not, it's just part of being a grown up and being financial literacy. HP 10B2 is what I like. There's other ones out there.
Does everybody see down here at the bottom? This is her. This is
That's
it.
what
Yeah.
it looks like.
This
$6 on my phone, and I literally can.
Don't you have a training on your website for us too? Video training?
Yeah, I think I might.
Well, it's Kathy Malcolm did.
Yeah,
Last-
Kathy did it with a slightly different computer, and we can do this because, as it turns out, our day we're going to have Sherry on, but we have a lot of flexibility, and there's a lot of people in here in this room that are going to get up and talk too, because I want to pick your brains too, let you leave your love in the room. But so we can do this. We can do more practice. That's what I really want to do. So real number crunching, real situation. So you leave with something. Is that good? Okay, but just for now, we're just dealing with this one, and we'll do more of this later this afternoon. So let's just pretend that's close enough. So now there's there's 199 left, Ashley. Where does that go? That goes into N or term. Right? We do this at the meetup group, right, guys?
Yes.
I make you guys get up and do this. Okay, and then based on the whatever the quick sale was, you said 75% BPO, and I took the low number
Yeah.
because the last thing I want is you not to be happy
Right.
and right, and
You were a stickler about
actually
that, too.
it's worth half.
Right.
By the time you get it back, it's worth half, and then you just feel.
I tried to give
punched.
pushback on that actually. I was like, why are you, this is, that clearly says, and then, you're like, nope,
No.
quick sale value, that's it, take it or leave it.
Yeah, because she'll start talking, and
Yeah.
I give her a bad deal.
I've got a big mouth.
Okay, so I think the number, I don't remember, what did you actually pay? So we took 75% of the quick as-is sale on those BPOs.
I'd have to go back and look. I've done a couple deals since then.
Let's, so what we're gonna do, just put in 13.8% yield, and then we'll tell you what you
Yeah,
paid for
there
it.
you go.
Yeah, that's about right,
Yeah,
something like
yeah.
I
that.
think
That's
it was
right.
308.
Yeah,
308?
Yeah.
Okay, so close,
Yeah.
right?
So
So
that's 70% of purchase?
75% of appraised value. Quick sale BPO.
Mhm.
Because they give you 3 different ones, right?
14% is 308.
So
Yeah.
14%, 308.
yeah,
So that was the deal.
that was the deal. And it basically,
And you had sold it. You already had it negotiated for.
yeah, because
Something.
we wanted to. It was a lot. Yeah, we had to make sure that the broker was very specific. He wanted to keep his commission intact, which was enormous.
Yeah, he was very attached to.
But he was working on it for 4 months.
Yeah,
and he put a lot of work in. And this isn't a joker broker. This is a gentleman who's been doing this just as long as I have. And so we wanted to keep that going. He does get good leads, and he does get leads that Well, here's an example.
What was the motivation of the seller to take?
He was a gentleman who was just looking to downsize. He was, I wouldn't say elderly, but he was just looking to simplify his life.
So he had a portfolio.
Yes.
He sold it on terms.
Yep.
Then he's like, well, I don't even want this headache anymore.
Because the borrower, he just didn't want to deal with the borrowers. He didn't want to deal with chasing them down and making sure the properties are. And it's not just this one. And he had other properties he was selling too, or he had sold. So tenants and that kind of thing. He just wanted out. He just wanted out.
He paid on the buyer had paid on the loan for how long?
41 months. Yeah.
So that's a pretty strong
Payment history. And, the equity position wasn't fantastic at first, but there was a lot to like about this deal, for sure.
Right, and
You have
plus,
higher costs. I'm sorry, Don.
no, go
You have
ahead.
higher costs because it's cross collateralized. 17 different.
Yes,
ways.
absolutely. You had to do 12 different, exactly. And that would have significantly ate into part of the upfront negotiation was like, okay, Mr. Note Seller, he was the most patient man. He knew exactly what he was getting into. And I said, look, if we're going to do this, I'm going to put you with private money. We're not going to put you through the ringer as far as underwriting. And I kept saying to the broker, this deal's going to close. We just need to stay within these parameters. And he was like, look, I'll pay for the title. I'll pay for the appraisal. I think the other broker and I had to split $450 two ways. That was our portion of the closing costs. Everything else was paid by him because he was tired of getting, led on by the other investors. We want our own BPO, we want our own this, and they would take forever and forever. So he's like, I want to control that situation. Okay, then you pay for it. You know what I mean? And he saw how long it took and why it takes 2 weeks to go through that. He expect, yeah, you should have that back in a couple days. No, that's not going to happen. There's 12 properties here.
Was it so? I'm taking it that 80 or like most of the deals that you broker or whatever.
Yeah.
You want to,
Wholesale?
Wholesale. Those are all usually professionally serviced by a third party?
No,
No?
not at all. As a matter of fact, the ones that are serviced by a third party are, that's definitely a plus. I know Dawn loves it. I sure as heck love it. So
So on your diligence, are you just getting copies of canceled checks?
that's right. Canceled checks. This is my favorite one. This is a true story. But yes, to answer your question, canceled checks. I'll do bank print-offs or deposit slips. From time to time, I get a picture of 15 handwritten receipts that you buy from a receipt book at Walmart. Doesn't cut it, obviously. And then one guy said, I got $22,000 cash as a down payment. I said, well, I need proof of that. Well, I don't have a bank account. And this sale just happened. And about an hour later, I get a text of a picture of a pile of cash sitting on a kitchen table. I'm like, what do you want me to do with this?
What's your diligence as far as to make sure the note was originally originated properly?
Yes.
And that, like, when Ashley Cash over there purchases it, does she then just get payments made if she's got a Quest account? Because Quest takes payments, and then does she set? Do you set her up on a servicing if she wants to?
We could absolutely. I stay out of it typically, but we do have the ability for a fee to set up servicing. I don't choose.
I asked her who she wanted because there was none in place.
Right.
So,
August REI.
so
Yeah.
then I did the.
Dawn did it all for me.
Yep.
All set up
And
for
I
me.
had to because she was like lost off on one of her properties in a lightning strike, and she had no cell and no. And I'm going. I know she's pretty solid. It's our first deal, but she is MIA. I'm just gonna do
I remember that.
everything.
Right.
And you actually had to front the other guy because he's starting to. We closed. Where's my money? And it's like.
Oh,
She had
right.
to
It took
pay.
right. I had to pay. So I this is something I didn't like to do.
Whatever day I'm supposed to.
I had to
To the
write
title
an enormous check before receiving anything, and that
So
was.
that is where
But
you trust.
that's the only reason I did it is because Dawn was telling me this is a solid person. I would have never done that, and I would have probably lost that broker forever because the last thing you want to do is screw a broker on a commission. That's a surefire way to end that relationship
And
pronto.
who takes care of all like the recording and making sure? Like,
The title company that we hire. So we go back to the original title company that originated the transaction. We do title date downs from the last time the lenders were done.
I remember what happened. There was some holdup with something. Something hadn't come back yet, and so you were like,
Oh,
I don't know when this is going to close. We're going to push it back a week or something like that.
And then it got sped up, and all of a sudden you're like, I need your money today. And I'm like, I'm in the boondocks.
Right, I remember that.
Well, because you got the money to title, so we closed the note.
Right.
But I had you sending me the 50 grand.
Oh, yeah,
Right.
y'all's money.
Right,
yeah.
right, after the fact.
The deal got done.
The deal got
but
done.
Then you couldn't get internet access when I'm going,
Well,
Abby,
50.
well.
If I
here's the money.
recall correctly, I was on a Mediterranean island when I got word. I was like, finally I can relax.
I planned it that
Do
way
you
for
guys
you.
usually get paid out of escrow, just like
No,
real estate?
no. It's typically done outside of escrow.
How do you protect yourself, and how do you?
Because of
Trust.
Trust.
So with First National, I trust them. I point to Rudy because Rudy and I met through Dan Malcolm a couple weeks ago. But First National, everything's paid out of Grand Bank. Everything's paid out of outside of every note buyer I've ever done business with, institutional or private money, paid outside of.
So do you have like a signed fee agreement then?
I do. Oh, absolutely. I provide the signed fee agreement for the brokers that come to us or the finders that come to us, and then usually, if we're wholesaling it without, or if we'll say brokering it without using our own money or purchasing a portion of, we will sign some sort of fee agreement to lock us in. But there's very rarely that I'll go and do business with new capital. Institutional capital, because there's not that many institutions out there that we haven't already done business with. So we already have.
So she was required to pay you in this agreement, like.
I was relying on Dawn. Again, it was all trust. Dawn and we're cowboys and cowgirls. We shoot from the
I
hip.
never met him before yesterday.
Right.
Talked to him on
We never met. I didn't even know she purchased the deal. You guys just saw my. I didn't know she was the buyer. So
You get paid through the escrow. It's
we don't
on the
get.
side.
Yeah, it's all on the side. So the escrow.
I
That's
know why. I know why it was separate is because we had a hoo-ha we couldn't get proof of insurance, and I wasn't
Yes,
gonna
that's
ask
what
her.
it was.
I
I was like,
not
there was
gonna
some-
ask
that's what it was. The borrower did not
Until-
have proof of insurance, and it wasn't
There
going
was, I was like, it wasn't like I was slow paying y'all. There was a reason.
No, there was a reason. There was a reason. You're absolutely right.
Don't make me look bad.
And we had to. This is part of the process, guys. Just to let you know, I want to add here. This is part of the note buying process that we talked about. That we had to shepherd the borrower, not the seller, along in getting that in order to get paid. And we had the seller was like, "What's happening? Come on, let's close." We finally got him his deal, and then we had to maintain our broker relationship, and we had to
There was
shepherd
a
that deal
lot of
along. It was
moving
all about that
pieces,
process.
And we all had to work
Yep.
together to do it because at the end, I'm going, I am not going to ask her for money that goes to us until she has proof that she's covered.
Right.
And that took longer than it should have.
Yes,
It was
absolutely.
just a pain in the butt.
Absolutely. And if you don't mind, there's actually in the presentation I was.
And by the way, just so everybody knows, I'm perfectly happy to pay them their $50,000. No. But I'm trying to make a point.
Yes.
Some people look at it and they're like, I can't believe they're making $50,000 on this deal.
That's
They're
true.
taking meat off the bone, blah, blah, blah,
That's
blah.
true.
But I'm still making a 14% yield.
Right.
So I'm perfectly happy paying them their $50,000 for bringing me something that's going to make me that kind of money.
Like how
right?
many marketing dollars did you have to pay to find that deal?
0.
Right. So here's the thing.
I just wanted to make that point.
That you're not cheap, cash.
But some people would be like, well, why did they get 50,000? I'm like,
Well,
because they did all the work.
And here's the.
Right? They did the marketing.
That's
they
right.
did the work. And I'm still making a good deal, so it's a win-win.
And it's
They-
passive. This is
Yeah.
totally passive
And
money.
here's the thing: the reason why investors do that is because they look at their T value or however they're calculating their spread, and they go, "This SOB is making more than I am over the life of the loan." You know what I mean? So if an investor sees that, obviously they're not going to approve it, and that's where some of these joker brokers, we would give them a $60,000 offer, and they would take $32,000 out for their commission. Of course you're going to get a no. So, that's part of the thinking, and a lot of the finders don't understand that because they're not using their own capital. So, absolutely good point. If you guys don't mind, I have an example on the, I want to get to this example because I know some of you folks were here last year, you saw this. I want to talk specifically about how to find opportunities when, engaging in the discounted note industry. How do we get that back up, may I ask?
So you go to slideshow.
No, I actually, no,
I'm working on it.
that made you look bad. That that should have made you laugh. Now, the thing is, if I would have asked Ashley, she would have sent me the money.
Yeah.
But just as a matter
Ah,
of
perfect.
my,
Thank you.
it was my ethics, I go, no, we don't have all, that last duck in a row wasn't there, quack, quack. You know, I just go, I'm not gonna.
But that made me appreciate you even more,
Right.
right?
So,
Vice versa.
because she would have, if I would have said, hey man, I got a crunch, you know, she would have done it. But
Right.
I just don't like doing business that way, man. If we didn't do our job right,
Yep.
everything's, nailed down, we shouldn't get paid yet.
I agree.
If I-
Absolutely.
Can
Yes.
I ask a question?
Yeah.
So when the note was purchased, there was 199 payments were left, right? So based on my calculation, it came out to be 417.
Yeah, so here's the thing, when I've given you, the broker, and you guys may have experience with this, they're not always 100% accurate. The information I was reading off of was his original submission form. What I do is I sanitize that submission form and then I send it out to my investors. I wasn't reading you the sanitized version, so there could be discrepancies. So I apologize for misrepresenting the numbers in that originally.
So let me just complete the story, which I
Please.
was a little bit confused about. So 417 was the remaining balance on that note, right?
Yes,
On the original note.
yes, something like that.
So now when Ashley bought that note,
Yes,
she paid 308.
Yes.
right?
I'm pretty sure it was 308,000.
low threes.
And then she paid 50,000 more on top of it.
No.
No?
So who paid the 50K?
She,
I
out of the
paid-
308
I paid
came the
them
50.
308,
The-
but I
the
sent
net-
260,000 around.
The seller
The
received
title.
260.
Yes.
50 to us,
The-
and then the
Yeah,
balance.
the seller's net proceeds were 260,000. The remainder went to the three brokers, or three finders, or three sources.
What percentage of the principal balance did he get then?
So I had a
60?
You have 60, like the mid 60s, I want to say. I have a current balance when I submitted this to Dawn at 429,393. That was the balance at the time in March. Again, it could have been off a couple, but if you divide 429,303 by 260, that is the percentage. What would that be?
So you
So
got,
he was very motivated.
Yeah.
61%.
429.
And Ashley got it for, so 308 divided by what, 429?
I'm working on, divided by.
72 cents on the UPB, unpaid principal balance.
70, how much?
72?
No. 260 divided by 429 is 61 cents on the dollar. It was
That's what the seller took.
That's what the seller
and
took.
she-
Right.
She paid 72 cents.
72 cents. And that was the spread isn't usually that
Big.
big, but this guy was motivated, and Larry, the broker, had this guy all teed up. He had him all teed up, so it was very little work we needed to do to convince him to say yes. He was just asking us how quickly was his main concern. So he was already sold. I want to continue.
I thought it was a good deal, 72 cents on the dollar if the guy pays me back refinances.
And in Texas.
And in Texas.
He doesn't pay.
You get your gun
Texas is the
discount.
best, just to let you know. All you Texans out there know that Texas is in fact the best state to invest in mortgage notes because of the foreclosure process. God forbid if it has to get to that point. Extremely quick, extremely easy, and extremely inexpensive. So it's not New York, that's for sure. I don't know if anyone ever had a deal in New York. It could take upwards of 3 years and sometimes tens of thousands of dollars in some cases. So
And for my business model, if I ended up with all those properties back, I'll just turn around and owner finance them.
right,
Individually.
and they're perfect location for
And I'll
that.
make way more money.
Exactly.
Doing that.
Right.
So
Right.
it seemed like a good deal.
It is a good deal, absolutely.
Now, but me in Nevada or my California people, they can't do what you can do.
Mm-hmm.
See, if you take it back, that's right in your backyard.
Yeah.
Right.
Never care.
Right.
I've already driven past it several times.
Yeah.
Right. So that's why you are the best person, because something goes sideways.
Right.
You can monetize that like that.
Mhm.
Where that's a pain in the butt. I gotta fly
Right.
there, or I gotta pay boots on the
Right.
ground, and maybe they're
And-
giving me
And it's a
that
small
phone.
town, less than 15,000 people,
And-
but it's got lots of oil boom around it. So the houses are low enough price individually. Obviously, 11 properties for the BPO, but a bank would not finance those houses to anybody. But I can owner finance them to people all day long.
Right.
Right.
So I'm going, yes, sir.
I kind of
Of the 11 houses, are they all titled individually now in an LLC, or?
This is good.
Ashley?
Ashley, it's a question directed to you. My dear.
Of the 11 houses, do you individually title them in LLCs, or how did you title them?
Well,
Well, the LLC, you wouldn't title an LLC unless if the property's being occupied for rental, you want to do that because of liability issues. But if you have passive income going through, you don't have to necessarily do that unless you're taking the property back. She owns the paper, not the property. If you're owning the property, then you want to do that for protection.
I do own the note in an LLC though.
So it's just one note, 11 properties, she just right now owns the one note.
Right.
Now, if he defaults,
Then
she'll go and
restructure,
own all of them,
right.
and then you decide how you're gonna take, I mean, you're already in an LLC, and you can
But
decide.
you would-
But that guy, you mean the guy, the bar?
No, he's talking about Ashley.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna bring this back to the center, guys, because I know everyone's kind of getting, we need to move this along. Let's keep this going. So, real quick, I'm just gonna touch on this. Tactics on how to stick out from the competition. Number one, very, very, just so simple. And these people make my job so easy when they don't do this. They don't put their offers in writing. They'll give it to them over the phone. The offer is, so bad, or the presentation was so bad, the guy goes, "Thank you very much. Take care. See you later." You don't ever have a chance on, making sure, because if they want to come back to you down the road, how the heck are they supposed to get a hold of you if you don't send your offer in writing? What I do, and what has been extremely effective, is not only do I put the offer in writing now, I do a page 2 where the offer letter contains a cash breakdown of their a cash breakdown of the cash that they would receive over the life of the ownership of that loan for them. Not over the life of the loan, but we'll break it down on a partial. Okay, this is the down payment. This is the how many payments you've collected to date. This is our cash offer. We add those together, and then we give them, that number, and then we divide that number by the sales price and show them how much money they've received on it thus far before selling the note on a full offer, and then we'll also break that down from on a partial. That is extremely effective. Unfortunately, I just thinking of this now, so I didn't put that into the presentation, but if anyone wants an idea of what I'm talking about after this week, I would be more than happy to show you or email you. Again, we talked about follow-up, extremely important. I'm not going to touch on that at this point, but follow-up is extremely important. And then knowing your product and sharpening your pitch. What that means is, what are you selling? If in this business, the one I'm talking about specifically, you're selling money, period. That is what you're selling. You're selling money. It could be expensive, not cheap money all the time. But if you're going for cheap cash, right? So if you're going through a company like mine, it's not going to be too cheap, but because we have mouths to feed and bills to pay. But that being said, you want to know your product. You want to know if as soon as I could talk to someone, I know wheels start turning. Where do I send them? How do I approach this? This does come from experience for sure. And that experience will give you the confidence you need. But this is extremely important to know your product, which is the capital that we're providing, and sharpening your pitch or your presentation to understand how you can shepherd that a deal along, like we talked about earlier. And just kind of blowing through this here. This is what I wanted to share primarily because this will give you the meat and potatoes, not just the garlic bread, as you said. Finding buying opportunities, and I put when brokering notes, but when finding notes or however you want to phrase it. And we talked about this last year. And again, so forgive me if you guys have already kind of sat through this. Hopefully you guys will find value in this information. Buying back end payment streams using partial purchases with as little money out of pocket as possible. And this here is the example in which I refer. $55,000 sale price, and this is just an example, but let's just say you have a $55,000 sale price. We have $11,000 down payment, that's 20%. We have a face value amount of note of $44,000 with a face coupon rate or an interest rate of 6%. Let's say we amortize that over 30 years, leaves a $263.80 principal and interest payment. And let's say on that 30-year note, 9 payments have been made with 351 remaining. That is a very typical note that would come across our desk. Now, what would happen here is they want top dollar. They want top dollar for the note. Let's say we take them through all of our channels and we're not getting them what they want on the full. And then we start thinking here, well, maybe we can do something, or maybe we have this thought prior to taking them through the channel so we can just capture that lead. And as you do this more and more, you become more comfortable. Let's say that your seller, let's say First National in this case, a large institutional buyer, is giving you, Abby, it's way too long, 29 years is way too long for us to want to be in this property. We want to be out in the first 10 years, right? Here's a partial. We're only offering you a 120-month partial for $21,742.79. That is extremely, typical. So you can say, well, you know what? The seller wants a full purchase offer, and they're leaving a lot of payments on the table, and it's a really good partial, considering what we got here. I mean, it could be worse, right? So your wheels start turning. You go, well, look, if I can capture the remaining 231 payments, how do I do that? Well, in this example, what we do is, assuming that you have $10,000 or whatever the case may be, it may only be 5, and if you can negotiate with the seller on that offer, the 21 plus 5, so be it. But in this particular case, for this particular example, I gave him a very typical example here. We're assume that we are then, Amerinote is taking an additional $10,000 to buy the remaining payments of $231,000. So what we're doing is we're piggybacking off of a large institution, not only their partial, which they're coming with most of the money out of pocket, but we're piggybacking off of their underwriting process. They're paying for the appraisal. They're paying for the title. They're doing all the verification. And this particular institution I'm talking about has 7 floors of employees. So, if an assignment of deed of trust has to be drawn up, my account rep may go to lunch, and when he comes back, it's done. That's how quick they do things there, because they have the bandwidth to do it that quickly. So that is the beauty of this. Now, what do we do with that? We take the 21,742.79 and we add our 10,000 in, and we then present an offer, a total full buyout, exactly what the seller asked for, of $31,742.79. Now, let's assume for 1 second that this seller went to 4 other places and everyone gave him a partial, because that's all they do, and that's very typical, because it's fairly easy to stick out from the competition here. Well, I'm the only company that's going to give him a full. Okay, well, now you got the wheels turning, and now he understands, after talking to 4 or 5 people, that it's only 73 cents on the dollar, which isn't terrible, but he just wants out. He just wants out. He never wanted to hold the paper in the first place, or she never wanted to hold the paper in the first place. So he accepts that offer. And what happens at this point is, if you divide that unpaid principal balance, or UPB, you're going to see that they received 72.8 cents on the dollar, which rounded up is 73 cents. And that's how you do that, by taking the amount and dividing it by the unpaid principal balance at the time after 9 payments, which is $43,597.82. And guess what, guys? On that 10,000, have a look at that yield at the bottom. There's your yield right there.
What if that was in an IRA, one of your self-directed IRAs?
One of your exactly. 32.44% yield.
So, let me back up. When you say partial offer from an investor, are you saying you had another investor that was willing to pay $21,742.79 for the 120 months?
Correct.
And then you put in your $10,000 to make the remainder of the 231.
Right.
So basically,
we're piggybacking, and here's the deal: we don't collect payments for 10 years. So that is the pinch right there.
It's a return.
It's a return. Yes, sir.
I call that buying a whole and selling a partial on the same day.
There you go. And that's exactly right. Now, the key here with this particular institution that I have in mind, most investors, you have to, they're not going to put 21,000 in and then you put 10,000 in. In order for you to do that, they know you're piggybacking off of them. They're not idiots, so they know what you're doing. You have to come up with the $31,742 out of your own bank account, put it into escrow, and then they will immediately reimburse you at closing. So that you'll put it in one day, and that same very day you'll get back the $21,742, only spending the 10. That is the rub here in this particular case with this particular investor. There may be other investors that would allow that, but that is the case. And this is a very easy way, if you're out there actively looking for notes and you actively have an investor network, and that investor network is either unwilling or unable to provide you with what you need, you can always scoop up the back end. And believe me when I tell you, all these note owners, the Steves, Walter, Dawn, and anyone else out there buying notes or has purchased notes, there's nothing better than 12 years or 8 years, let's just say 8 years into this process. You're on title as an owner, correct? Back end interest. 8 years into this process before you ever received a penny, they refinance. And you get a big fat check in the mail. That's a good feeling. It's a good feeling. And all you did was had a little foresight You may have not gotten your 32%, but if they pay you, that yield is going to be fantastic. If they pay it off, it's a win-win here, and it's something that should be highly utilized. So that will conclude, but I will take any questions, please.
The aversion in the first case, the reason why there was a partial to begin with was
Yes.
because there was some aversion to the full.
Because of the term.
Because the term was
Too long. So
this is why they say they like FNAC, like they say 10, 10, 10 rule of thumb.
exactly. And here's the thing.
Too long.
Right. Even with the 20% down payment, a lot of investors are not going to pay top dollar. That amortization eats away at the profits, at the yield. It eats away. It's less exposure. A hell of a lot of things can change over 30 years, and that's a long time for return on investment. Now, I know investors that are actively looking for 30-year loans because they don't want to have to hustle anymore trying to fill their coffers with more notes and more notes because they're tired of it. They want to slow it down a little bit, So there's it's all about investment appetite. What is your investment appetite? And I know I mentioned it to a couple of you guys. I'm looking into getting in the note business. I'm looking to buy notes or whatever the case is. My recommendation is to identify what your investment appetite is. I know some of you may say, well, I'm not really sure. Do you want good credit borrowers? Do you want a property that you can drive to? Do you mind if it's 3,000 miles away? Do you understand the foreclosure laws in the state that you're considering buying the note in? So forth and so on. Do you want high credit score borrowers? Do you want low credit score borrowers? How much work do you want to do? You want mailbox money? I mean, there's a lot of questions you need to ask yourself, but it's all about investment appetite in this particular case. So with that being said, I thank you. And
Phenomenal.
yes, thank you.
Okay, so I really,
Yes. Oh, I'm
Can
sorry.
I ask a quick question?
Yes.
So in this case, the investor who bought the parcel for about 10 years,
Yes.
their rate of return was, or their yield was like 8%.
Yeah.
Is that typical?
That's typical for an institutional lender. First National's yields on the deals that they like have gone as low as 5.75% on a yield. Is the lowest yield I've ever received from them. Now that being said, that was a 720 plus credit score borrower. It was a coastal California property in Southern California. It was owner occupied. I think it was 117 payments remaining, 3 payments made, and they still made that kind of yield. And we got the deal closed. But yes, it is typical. It's not the norm. It's typical in the sense if the characteristics line up with their investment appetite, yes. And because the reason that these larger institutions are literally getting more cutthroat, which is bleeding down into the companies like ours, which are getting more cutthroat. I got guys now and gals that are taking, based on the calculations I'm seeing, we're capturing leads and say, well, I talked to this guy over here and he's offering this. And then he tells me the structure. Well, I get to keep 2 payments, and I already know it's First National if he gets to keep 2 payments. And I go, well, wait a second, my offer is here. Well, that guy's only making $800 commission. What is he, crazy? You know what I mean? He can keep it for $800, So it's becoming way more cutthroat and way more competitive, and that is typical, yes.
Yield requirements, speak to that again. So depending on the area, down to 5-6%. California.
The lowest
kind of
I've
stuff.
ever had was 5.75%, but it had, again, 720 plus credit and so forth.
Right, but then you told me recently that I guess based on interest rate hikes or something,
Yeah.
that they're
going up. Yep.
Their cost of capital is going up a little bit.
Their
so
cost of
now
capital is going up.
they're not
underwriting.
as
They're
competitive.
not as, and that's good news for us.
Yeah.
The more hairier it gets out there in the world of real estate and mortgages, the more deals are available. And my recommendation is put that money aside so when that happens, you have buying power.
That was the question I wanted to ask you. When you first started off, you were talking about back in like 2005, 2008.
Mm-hmm.
You said when the market crashed, you didn't know as much. You
I
missed
did.
a lot of deals.
I missed a lot of deals.
So where were those deals? Like
What was it? So I
what
missed a
were you
lot of
missing?
buying opportunities. I didn't. So if
Because I have a feeling we're coming back to that.
absolutely. So
Let's
let's say September 2008, I'll never forget that day where I was in Lodi, California, and I was driving back from Walmart or something, and the economy crashed, the whole thing. If I knew then what I knew now, and let's say that I did, and I tried to go out in January of 2009 and borrow money, wouldn't have happened because I'm too late to the game. I didn't have the money lined up ready to go for that downturn. all of the signs. I was so hyper-focused on the website and the process and, making, protocols and systems in place to make it easy for the note seller, because I was all about the note seller and not the investment portion. I was trying to capture the leads because I came from a marketing background, not necessarily an investing background, you know what I mean? I wasn't prepared for the buying opportunities that were in front of me because we didn't have the cash flow to do so.
So when you
That's
say
what I mean.
you didn't have your cash set up, are you talking about like institutional cash, or are you talking
I'm
about like
talking about
investment
Abby
money
and Molly
that's-
didn't have cash in a bank account to buy notes.
But
Right,
now you know that you have a network of investors.
correct.
That hopefully will still have some of their money that still needs to get invested.
Not to mention, we're highly liquid now. So, if some would say too liquid, right, Sherry? But and we still didn't move. Anyway, we'll talk about that. But
We're not done.
we're not done yet. And yes. So, but we are ready for that downturn now. We are ready for the buying opportunities that come along. And there's plenty of buying opportunities even in this market that we obviously. The buying opportunity that we talked about here and others. But yes, there's many out there, but that's what I meant. We weren't prepared with, and I hate to use, well, not necessarily hate, but money in the chamber ready to pull the trigger. We didn't have that ready to go.
Hey, you're pretty close to Nevada. It's okay to say
Okay.
that.
Do you see, like when that happened, did you see more people wanting to sell their notes just because they needed liquidity too?
I
Or-
saw tons of people wanting to sell their notes, and I saw
No one was buying.
no one was buying, and no one, if they were buying, the only game that I was dealing with, the only game in town at that point was First National Acceptance, and they were paying no more than 60 cents, 65 cents on the dollar for any note. I mean, it was.
No matter what.
We didn't close the deal from September 2008 until I think January of 2010. I went without getting paid, again, leading back to Molly and her W-2 job, and that's what, it saved us.
What a woman.
Well, oh, yeah. We got to get her cape. Thank you.
We had a long